In New York we say, fuck you looking at. In Texas we say, fuck around and find out. In Florida we say, where did I put my pills? In LA we say, spare some change. In Canada we say, we're so sorry. In Australia we say, you're a cunt. In China we say, everyone is free here. In Brazil we say, give me your wallet. In South Africa we say, get out of the car. In Mexico we say, Plato Plomo. In Ireland we say, blame the Jews. In Russia we say, I hacked into the bank. In Nigeria we say, nothing to see here. In Saudi Arabia we say, Allahu Akbar. In England we say, Allahu Akbar. In France we say, Allahu Akbar. In Poland we say, we told you so. In Israel we say, blame us if it makes you feel better.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Do me a finger, will you please? Raise your finger, share this program. We're going to get back to some of the teaching I was doing. So please raise a finger, give me the finger. Could be 2 or 3 full fingers. I don't care. Use the whole hand. Hit them all. Like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. But get this program out because, you know, this election stuff, since the president's speech, all coming back with a roar. And it's good to focus on elections. It absolutely is. But all the same misinformation is also being recycled at the same exact time. And so I just want you to be aware and use discernment. One of the benefits of now, sadly, being so far down the road is you now have a lot of seasoning and understanding and knowledge base under you where you might be able to look at things for exactly what they are and get past the hype and get down to the back, because the bottom line, all this is about is getting our elections fixed. That's all this is about. Get our freaking elections fixed. By the way, as soon as I leave this program, I'm going to jump over to my locals. Join me there. If you're on Rumble right now, you'll see a little red oval that says join. Click it. You can join me on locals. I'm doing an episodic series of everything you need to know about Islam. And I'm going to be continuing now with another installment of teaching you, okay, what did the people that were immediately around Muhammad, who declared himself a prophet, what was really going on, what was really being said versus to what you're told today is Islam is the religion of peace. So we're going to dive right into that. That's at Jovan, Hutton, Pulitzer.locals.com. By the way, today's program is brought to you by the fine folks at Goldco. It's a pretty simple proposition, folks. They're going to move us all digital. It's just going to happen. All I'm asking you to do is to go to jovanlovesgold.com. This is why I partner with Goldco, because just request your free gold and silver kit today. It might be worth some silver to you because now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver. That's the difference between a physical asset and a digital asset. JovanLovesGold.com. Check it out. Okay. In this particular episode, this is part 2, discernment part 2. We're going to tackle this thing of flipping the votes or flipping obvious. What's fact or fiction? The key is now discernment. You're far enough on the education curve. You're far enough on the consuming of content curve. For God's sakes, you've been promoted, massaged, tweeted, text jacked, you name it, meme to death on this stuff. This is where you've got to have discernment in the times we're in, right? You've got to have it. By the way, big topic, discernment. You know, it's an issue of faith. and understanding your faith. I will shortly release my new book called Blind Faith: How Modern Religion and Church in 140 characters or less is killing American faith. Most people have no idea. Why do they believe what they believe? They just take it in blind faith. A lot like this election stuff. It's just blind faith. That's what I heard. They're popular. Here's kind of the premise of the book that will drop soon.
Why do you believe what you believe? Did you choose your religion, or did it choose you through family habit? Did you know a single fiery argument 2,000 years ago, or a fight 700 years ago, or a split that happened because of buttons on a coat, or the exact spelling of Jesus' name, or one Greek letter that decided whether Christ had one nature or two, may have formed the religion you follow? Maybe you never knew what formed your religion was the conflict over the use of 2 fingers over 3 fingers. Most of us walk through life with a faith we inherited, but never truly examined. We call ourselves Christian, non-denominational, spiritual, Pentecostal, Jehovah's Witness, Amish, Mennonite, Old Believer, or just churchgoer, without knowing the shocking stories behind the brand we wear. Things like one failed prophecy in 1844 or 1914, or even slavery and the Civil War may have decided your religion. Maybe Charles Darwin decided your religion. Debates over whether God or Jesus removes sins, or bread only, wine only, or both for communion. Maybe it was just sprinkling a baby or dunk deep for baptismal. Was it prayer must be silent off in a corner, or must be loud on your knees? Married priests or celibate, Latin or Greek, facing the sun or turning your back to the sun when you pray? These weren't small disagreements. They fractured churches, created whole new movements, sparked executions for heresy, sometimes caused the murder of millions, and shaped the spiritual lives of billions. One group banned bright colors as demonic. Another argued over how to punish the disobedient. Gurneyites, Hiskites, Wilburites, Hutterites, names most have never heard, yet they still quietly divide people today. Blind Faith is the most exhaustive, no-holds-barred deep dive ever published into the hidden history of the faith, religion, and church you think you know. It pulls back the curtain on a 2,000-year war of ideas, politics, power, and sincere conviction that turned sincere believers against one another over questions that still echo in our churches, our families, and our culture wars. This isn't dry theology. It's a straight-talking layman's journey that forces you to confront the uncomfortable truth. Much of what we accept as just the way it is started as human arguments dressed up as divine will. Faith is powerful, but blind faith blinds us to facts, to history, and sometimes even to the very truth it claims to defend. Dig deep. Question everything you thought you knew, because until you understand where your faith really came from, you're not truly walking in it. You're just following the path someone else cut centuries ago. Are you ready to see?
I'm really excited about this particular book because, again, information's the key. And in anything you are convicted over, your faith, how elections are run or not run or whatever, or got the PCAPs, whatever you're convicted by, you've got to be able to stand behind it, defend it, and understand what your truth is and where does the truth come from. Like, there are people right in this program that are watching along with other people in the program, and these people right here, if they pray facing the sun, they're sinners. But yet these people will say, no, you pray with your back to the sun, you're the sinner. And that's S-U-N. And people don't even know these things is what brand, right? Whether you're a 2-fingered Christian or a 3-fingered Christian. True stuff. Or that your parents decided your faith because they believed Charles Darwin was right. Truthfully. Anyway, I think it's one of the most compelling books I've ever done. And I recommend it because what it will do is it will strengthen your faith when you understand, right? When you understand where you come from. And besides, it's far better to be a two-fingered American or a three-fingered American than a liberal one-finger American, right? So it's all about the fingers, folks. Anyway, that's coming up here very soon. I did a special program over to my locals just to kind of, I read I read the prologue, the introduction, and the final chapter. So you could kind of understand where this comes from. That's over on my locals where I'll jump to next. Anyway, discernment time, baby. Discernment time. This one's going to be worth your effort. It's going to be worth your time to dive into. We'll get started right after this.
In 2012, something changed. Not in one country, not in one school, not in one family. Everywhere, at the same time, all at once. And we are only now beginning to understand what happened. After more than a decade of stability, the mental health of teenagers plunged in the early 2010s. Rates of depression rose by 134%. Anxiety rose by 106%. Self-harm rose sharply. Suicide became the second leading cause of death for young people under 24 in the United States. 20% of 12 to 17-year-olds had at least one major depressive episode. The CDC called the findings devastating. This was not a blip. This was not one bad year. This happened in country after country after country at the same time. So what happened in 2012? In 2012, smartphones became universal for teenagers. Instagram launched in 2010. Snapchat in 2011. Twitter was already everywhere. And at exactly the same moment, the play-based childhood that had defined human development for thousands of years was replaced by what psychologist Jonathan Haidt calls the phone-based childhood. Children went from spending their afternoons outside, unsupervised, taking risks, making mistakes, solving problems with other children, to spending them alone, in their rooms, on a screen, being fed content designed to keep them there as long as possible. The research identifies more than a dozen ways this rewiring interferes with how children develop. Sleep deprivation. Children using phones at night sleep significantly less and significantly worse. Social comparison. The constant measurement of your real life against everyone else's curated highlight reel. Loneliness. School loneliness increased in 37 countries simultaneously in the early 2010s. And perhaps most significantly, the loss of unsupervised play. The thing that teaches children how to handle conflict, how to take risks, how to fail and keep going. A generation that never learned those things arrived at adulthood without the tools to handle it. Something happened to the mental health of children around the world at the same time that smartphones became universal. And whatever caused it, it has not been fixed. Australia passed a law in 2025 banning children under 16 from social media. The United Kingdom followed. More countries are considering it. Whatever you think of those laws, they exist because governments looked at the same data and decided that doing nothing was no longer an option. The question is not whether something happened to this generation. The question is, what are we going to do before it happens to the next one?
Okay, here we get started. By the way, thank you guys who made that particular book is now #1 bestseller. Thank you so very much. It's an important topic. Okay. You must get yourself educated on what's going on, because after the president came out and they spoke about, okay, here's what's up with elections, here's what's going on, you're seeing a lot of information come out. You're seeing a lot of people will say, well, he's saying the dress was blue. And the other people say, no, he said the dress was red. That's why discernment's the issue. And I'm doing this in the election stuff that people are talking about now, because I just want to give you discernment. Now, this is the topic of flipping votes, or is it flipping obvious? And how do you separate fact from fiction? In order to do this, I need to take you back just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit in time. Let me get my eye, okay? A little bit in time to the things that were being discussed when this coup happened.
Election systems across the U.S. are found to have deleted millions of votes cast for President Trump. According to an unaudited analysis of data obtained from Edison Research, states using Dominion voting systems may have switched as many as 435,000 votes from President Trump to Joe Biden. Now, the author also finds another 2.7 million Trump votes appear to have been deleted by Dominion, including almost 1 million votes in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Dominion. Flip votes, swap votes, drop votes. listen again to that. They tell you the person who was an instant expert out of somewhere basically did this off of Edison public data, not actual voting data. You now know the difference. Listen again.
Election systems across the U.S. are found to have deleted millions of votes cast for President Trump. According to an unaudited analysis of data obtained from Edison Research, states using Dominion voting systems may have switched as many as 435,000.
See, unaudited data from Edison Research. At that time, people didn't know those aren't the votes. They never have been the votes. That's television entertainment. They have 3,000 people on the phone calling to get updates, and they do make mistakes. But the con was never before had they ever changed votes live on TV. They needed that mechanism to get you to believe certain things. That's part of what we're going to discuss, because that's why this particular episode, flipping votes or flipping obvious. We're going to look at, can you determine what's flipping votes and what's flipping obvious? Here's some of the other stuff. Somebody I was asked to get a debrief from. And once I got the debrief and I understood that, yeah, I could turn over all this information to you for $435,000. I was like, what? Anyway, see if you remember this ditty.
Know the person who actually committed the act of uploading the software, where they did it, how they did it, and that has been put into an affidavit with the...
Oh, wait, somebody went to every single precinct in the United States of America, 175,000 places, and on each one of them uploaded new software.
Know the person who actually committed the act of uploading the software, where they did it, how they did it, and that has been put into an affidavit with the top lawyer of Italy, and was part of a proceeding, a judicial proceeding in a federal court in Italy in the past couple days. So news has been breaking. Italy did it is the global trending hashtag, and it is for a reason. This happened. It's very real. The president is right. Foreign interference did occur, and people need to be prosecuted in our country who actually participated. So that affidavit, as you said, was drafted and submitted to Congress at 1:12 this afternoon, as soon as we could get it over safely. There are people who have their lives at risk for wanting to save our country. They know it's that important. Many believe, like what we did as America for Italy in World War II, that it was time for them to repay saving America. And that's exactly what they did. They stepped up, amazing patriots.
So I want to be sure what our listeners are understanding this affidavit you're describing. I have it in front of me, and I may even read it at some point in the show, but the person is talking about what was uploaded was the instructions to flip votes from Trump to Biden on the evening, late evening November 3rd, early November 4th, as the votes are being counted in the unsettled states. This person is attesting that he was the one who uploaded the instruction to a satellite owned by Leonardo, the Italian cybersecurity company, a government contractor, uploaded the instruction to change those votes in America from Trump to Biden, and that went up to a Leonardo-owned satellite, back to servers then in Germany, and ultimately back to America. So this is the proof that votes were shifted by foreign powers in our 2020 November elections. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. This person has said very precisely that he has been an employee of Leonardo.
Okay. Again, this is not a new thing. This came out right after the election. Most people had no idea that, we have 3,242 counties roughly in the United States of America, and there's 175,000 voting places. But this particular story was some guy went in, created a program to flip the votes with the instruction sets. It goes from Biden to Trump. And the way they did it is he uploaded it at a satellite company or via satellite. And it's what gave the instructions and made everything do it. that was one of the things out there that was being promoted. Okay. Again, people, the system needs you to go a fraction, just to fracture you and make you go 1,000 different places, because what they're doing is they're playing a numbers game. They don't know what you're going to believe, but if it sounds important, ancient Catholic, Leonardo, Italy, the Pope, people could tend to believe it because the system gives you your demons. In this program, this is what we're breaking down so you have discernment. Okay? So you have discernment. And you're going to be able to decide, was this flipping votes or is it just flipping obvious what happened? Okay. So one person said it was Dominion and it was 435,000 and millions of votes. Another person said it was Italy. That was one of the demons. Here's one of the other demons.
Google alone shifted more than 6 million votes to Joe Biden.
Oh my God. Google did it? Google shifted 6 million votes? You've got to be kidding. What is that?
Google alone shifted more than 6 million votes to Joe Biden. Now, by the way, I supported Hillary Clinton. I supported Joe Biden. I lean left myself. So I should be thrilled, but I'm not thrilled because I don't like the fact that a private company is undermining democracy and getting away with it, and there's no restrictions on them whatsoever, absolutely none. They have an absolutely free hand, so they do what they're doing blatantly and arrogantly. Quick example of another ephemeral experience to show you how blatant and arrogant this is.
This is another one out there. You've seen these people on these election integrity calls. Now, his particular one is he swears he can stop it and will show you the proof, and his price was if you would give him $50 million for what he had found or were doing. Anyway, now we're going to dive into other ones. What got the most traction? I'm going to replay these things for you because it's very important you listen to the words. Each of them I'll play twice. It's very important you listen to the words. Because remember, this topic is only about discernment. I'm not tribal. I don't care whose team you're on. Somebody busted me out. I thought you were on Lindell's team. And I said, look, based on known lies, known bullshit that can't be backed up, and a lot of money raised for it, I got to tell you, I draw my line at that. And I said, don't you even see what you said? Basically, it's the same thing Republicans did. They didn't call out rhinos because they were on the same party. Newsflash, I don't give a fuck what party you're in. I don't give a rat's ass how many times you claim Jesus or God or Christian and have to tell us that. I don't care if you're military rank high, military rank low, a tech weenie, whatever it is. I don't care. There's only one thing that matters. How do we fix it? And you can't fix anything if it's based on bullshit. Let me give you an analogy before I take you into this and show you these clips and we get in it. Number one, let's say you walk outside into your driveway and here sits your vehicle. And all of a sudden, under your vehicle, there's a huge oil spot. Now, you didn't notice it because you started your car and for some reason it was kind of rough. You back out a little bit and it's sputtering and puttering. It's like something's wrong. So you stop for a minute. Got to figure this out. Then you see the oil spot in the middle of your driveway. Naturally, what do you do? You got some visible signs something's wrong. You've got some indications, physical evidence, something's wrong. Let me ask you a question. Do you know what's wrong yet? The answer obviously is no. So what do you do? One, you either investigate it yourself, looking for information, or you take your car to your dentist. To your Taco Bell point. To your choir teacher. To your mechanic. What do? you begin an investigation to figure out what's wrong. It's that simple. Now, the one thing you don't do is you don't rely on somebody who has no idea what it is. You might have a neighbor that's good at it, at least learn it, but you understand what I'm saying? You literally investigate it. Now, once you investigate it, and you got your neighbor buddy from the other side of the fence, Bob, saying, well, you know, when I look at it, I think your brakes are out. You don't go, oh, that must be it. I'll change my brakes. No, you dig deep and you figure out what's wrong with your freaking vehicle. And then when you arrive at what really caused it, what do? Logically, what do? You make a decision to repair it. You're repairing it to fix it. You're repairing it to make sure it doesn't happen again. And you're repairing it to make sure it doesn't destroy your vehicle. Elections are no different. Now, nothing in that is tribal. It doesn't freaking care if your mechanic loves Jesus, or your mechanic wears a cross on their shirt, or your mechanic's a Republican or a liberal, whatever. It's just about fixing it. Why? Because we're all in the same boat. It is no different with our elections, and that's why it's discernment. And that's why in this particular one, it's about, is this flipping votes or is it flipping obvious what it is? In order to do this, I've got to take you back in time. It's just like I showed you that video, Dominion swapped votes, and you probably saw this. Here it is, 33 seconds later. It was Trump had 1,690,589 votes, and 33 seconds later, he only had 1,670,634 votes. See, they stole votes from Trump. This was even in like the Moses 20, I Live Today and I'm here, I Walk Among You documentary. Here it is. No, that was a con to make people focus on the machines, because you see this as an oil spot. You try to figure out what it is, and you understand that is never the election data. It is not the official data. Never has been, never will be. But it also never happened in time. You never saw the votes change like that on television. Why? They needed this one piece to help sell you the narrative, and this helped sell the narrative. If everybody started saying, see, they're flipping votes. See, they took away votes. You watching now, if you told the truth, if you were intellectually honest, go, wow, you know, I kind of believe that too. Now, with that said, 2 more clips, then I'm going to get into some hard facts and let you use your own discernment. You may have seen this. Now, I want to let you know, when I saw this, because I was there. So I'm telling you something firsthand. I was asked to participate. I actually thought, oh, I'll do whatever is great for my country. Absolutely. I was called out of nowhere to participate with somebody I didn't know and somebody I'd never met in my life. Ever. Ever. The person flew in and picked me up on their private jet and took me to the home where all this was being recorded. And I met a lot of people you now know tied to this fellow. And I kind of sat back and I look at this and I'm told this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Billions of people are going to watch it. And what I did, because I have a very specialized skill set, when I observed in that environment, I wasn't enamored by who was there. I wasn't enamored by, you're going to be on TV. I already had a 20-year career on TV. Been there, done that shit. And when I got into the mix, I'm going, this is bullshit. Absolutely total bullshit. Now I'm being told 1 billion people around the globe are going to watch this. I'm meeting everybody you could possibly want to meet. They rounded up everybody that was the initial leading voices in something's wrong with our election. They rounded up everybody out of nowhere, all these kind of names and people. And so I'm sitting there and I'm in the midst of it. And when I got exposed to it, it comes to do what I do, I realized something's wrong here. None of this makes sense to me. Where are you getting this instruction set? Who's giving you these directions? And I realized that the directions of what to say and how to say it and where the information was coming from was a disconnected voice on a phone. Never appeared in person, was never around, but was calling the shots behind the scene. I'm doing quick research and I found out this person is supposedly an ex-CIA asset. That's number one. There is no ex-CIA. And then I understand who this person's husband is a big operative and Democrat operative. I basically, after all was said and done, I picked up the phone and an email because I'm very thorough and said, do not use my name with this. Do not associate this with me. I'm going to be doing the Arizona audit, and I'm telling you, this is crap, and it's going to discredit a whole bunch of people, and I want nothing to do with it, which I've shown you those emails and texts before. Here is what I witnessed. Let's jog down memory lane.
In this election.
That's right. So what you're watching is those objects moving are the actual files that are being received and sent.
These are the squares here that are being sent. So everybody out there, what you're looking at, I mean, this is the proof. So if like Antrim County, that case is still open, you just go, here you go. Now you know who did it, how many votes flipped, when they did it, what time they did it, the computer it came from, the country that attacked us. I mean, this is what I have been excited about, and I only seen one. You know, Mary, I only seen one little line of that, which showed the IP address, that all that stuff that you're showing us. When I found out that you had it for that we had it, that all these people had this for every single.
Hold the phone. Did Mike say when I found out you had this? Wait a minute. We had this. Listen carefully.
In this election.
That's right. So what you're watching is those objects moving are the actual files that are being received and sent.
These are the squares here that are being sent. So everybody out there, what you're looking at, I mean, this is the proof. So if like Antrim County, that case is still open, you just go, here you go. Now you know who did it, how many votes flipped, when they did it, what time they did it, the computer it came from, the country that attacked us. I mean, this is what I have been excited about, and I only seen one. You know, Mary, I only seen one little line of that, which showed the IP address, that all that stuff that you're showing us. When I found out that you had it for that we had it, that all these people had this for every single vote, every single attack, and whether it was successful or not. Look at right now, we got up on the screen. Georgia is just getting attacked. It was just getting attacked up here at that moment in time. And I suppose, they don't know what they're doing. They did the biggest attack right here. Look at everybody. Georgia and Michigan getting bombarded. My guess is that was probably like 3 or 4 in the morning when they really needed them votes to be flipped. Mary, this is incredible.
Yes, because there is proof positive. There's documentation of all the foreign interference into our election showing exactly who stole the vote, how they stole the vote, from which computers, access to our election, to which computers they went into. So understand that cybersecurity experts that work for this country put all this in place before the election even started to make sure that they caught all of this information so that foreign adversaries were not deciding our elections.
Absolutely. And what a blessing that they were there for us to catch all this and to get all this put together, and even to have these, to be proactive. They were proactive, everybody, and this is what a blessing this is, because we came this close to never knowing. And this is actually a miracle that we have all this, Mary, and this is amazing.
Hey, I play that for you because this is where you were told the votes were flipped, which interestingly, it supported what TV showed in graphics. You got to remember how all these things interconnect. Now, what he said was we have the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how, which is what you need in a court of law. Now, I'll remind you, under court testimony, you just heard it. Mike said we have it all, or she had it all. Wait, we have it all. And she tells you, here's where it happened, here's what they did, here's how they flipped the vote, etc. Of course, under a court of law where the act becomes criminal, Mike Lindell testified in court in a trial with jurors, no, I never had them. Now, they say they can't release them because it's protected by the government and something that happened in 2005. Olacon. I'll stand by that. And I'll show you why I'll stand by that in a moment. But you see a lot of mincing in words. You were told this was flipping votes. It was flipping votes. Remember, the exercise here is only discernment. You're going to be able to decide, is this a flipping of the vote? Or is this something that is flipping obvious? So that started, besides one thing started the Dominion stuff, because they need you to focus on it. Another thing focused on foreign interests, and another thing says it's done in machines. Another thing says, well, it was really done by satellite. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing. I want you to listen carefully to the words.
Back and forth, each one of them was an individual attack. And now we're going to show you again. So if you didn't watch Absolute Proof, go ahead and show us what we have here. What do we have on the screen?
So right here, when you see green, that is a successful intrusion, meaning they flip votes.
Right.
Red.
Okay, when you see green, it's where he says it's an intrusion, but then says it's where they flip votes. Now, this is later. This is a subsequent version. People's faces are blurred, anonymous sources. But when you see green, that means they flip the vote. Now, one thing you probably know painfully obvious, if I was sitting here right now and I could look at your computer or your phone, I could either find your MAC address, right, or your IP. I can use that number to find exactly where you sit. Anybody can do it. Exactly where you're sitting, unless you have a VPN, and then it'll mask it to someplace else. But you can identify where it is. Then when you identify where it is, you can identify who it is. So what they're actually telling you is we have every perpetrator that did it, every computer that did it, every place that did it, what they did, and here's what the vote was changed from. Now, let me ask you a question. You ever seen that? But you're told it's flipping votes. But again, listen to the words carefully.
Back and forth, each one of them was an individual attack. And now we're going to show you again. So if you didn't watch Absolute Proof, go ahead and show us what we have here. What do we have on the screen?
So right here, when you see green, that is a successful intrusion, meaning they flip votes.
Right.
Red is unsuccessful in terms of flipping votes, but it could be reconnaissance or, passive recon, just looking.
Green is flipping votes. Red is unsuccessful flipping votes. Wait a minute, it could be passive recon. Oh, wait a minute, it could be this. They tell you a lot of different things in it. Listen again.
Back and forth, each one of them was an individual attack. And now we're going to show you again. So if you didn't watch Absolute Proof, go ahead and show us what we have here. What do we have on the screen?
So right here, when you see green, that is a successful intrusion, meaning they flip votes.
Right.
Red is unsuccessful in terms of flipping votes, but it could be reconnaissance or, passive recon, just looking at the different machines to see what the totals are.
So the green, just say that again, the green attacks here, as we're watching, those were actually attacks that flip votes.
Correct.
From Trump to Biden, correct?
From Trump to Biden.
And the red lines are all, they're like checking on it.
Yeah.
Okay, does everyone get that? They're checking to see what the tallies are, and then the green ones are actually, when it goes over, this computer says, hey, I'm going to flip some, because it's keeping it this certain percentage, correct?
So the red doesn't necessarily mean, well, it's unsuccessful in terms of flipping votes, but it serves a purpose because it identifies which votes to flip.
Right. So it comes back, gives an identifier, then it'll send a green one over that gets through, flip the votes. And it's keeping these, is in your expertise, is keeping this so that the person that's set to win the election by a certain percentage. That's all it's doing, is keeping that. Now, before we get any further, now, I had talked to you before we got on here. It happened in every state, correct?
Yeah.
And even Alaska and Hawaii, right?
As you can see there, that pretty much...
Yeah, look at this, okay?
The entire United States.
Okay, entire United States. But what I had him do, I said, I want you to show us just like 19 attacks just on 5 states. Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Okay, and what did we find here?
So,
and by the way,
okay, I'll give you just my personal opinion because somebody asked it. Somebody asked me, do you think Mike believed it then? I told you right up front, when I saw this, when I saw who was involved, when I saw what they were saying, and they're doing this thing that we saw every single vote in the United States. I knew then something was wrong. You got to put everything together. All of a sudden, this begets a new network too. Out of nowhere, it got all these views, and then it also launched a new network. It launched a new network that didn't have a lot of viewers, but it got public for $150 million, windfall of cash. You just no. Mike is a key part of this. But I'm not tribal. And when I say I'm not tribal, I have no problem saying to President Trump, what the fuck are you doing endorsing Mike Lindell for governor? But I also understand politics. And politics, many times, is the choice of the lesser of two evils. I get it. I understand it. That's why I'm not a politician. I do not have the capacity to play politics, to be tribal. Because when you do that, you can't get anything fixed and everything stays in political tribes. We're past political tribes. And so that's why I'm going to show you some things you may have never seen before. I've alluded to them, etc. I'm going to show you part, but you're going to do this yourself. You're going to do this yourself. Now, Mike claimed they had 37 terabytes of every one of these changes. And understand, the rule in the court of law is, in order to perfect the lawsuit, you must prove what was the vote, who did it originally count for, what did it get changed to, what was the net effect, did it affect the outcome of the election, and how was it done? Now, you got this cover story. You got a cover story. Well, we can't turn it over, this 2020 information. We can't turn it over because, well, it got protected by the CIA in 2005 and 7, and that's why we can't turn it over. Just so you understand, proof of election fraud, which that would be, supersedes all that. It can't be protected. So I saw, for me, my own personal opinion, you do not have to believe it. I'm not tribal. I don't give a shit. Let me tell you, I don't give a shit. The only thing I give a shit is, do we fix this and America survives? I don't need the fallacious stories is what I don't need that stuff. I just need, here it is. We see this. How did it happen? So we can plug it and never let it happen again. And most people can't put together the disconnect because they're told, well, we couldn't present it in court. If you had every computer that did it and every vote that did it, you don't even need to go to fucking court. You do understand that. This is called the blurring of the lines. This is also to let you believe that everything was taken care of. Don't worry. Well, I am worried because I don't believe it's taken care of. And so I'm going to take you through this journey, hopefully, so you'll understand how some of this works. And here's where we'll begin. I can't comment on what happened in Michigan. Pop quiz, put it in chat. Why don't I comment about what happened in Michigan or Antrim County? Why do I not comment on that? Do you know why I don't comment on that? Or what happened in Wisconsin? Or what happened in Pennsylvania? Because I'm speaking from the facts of personally executing what I did for the audit in Arizona. So the only thing I can speak with absolute confidence on and show you how it happened is Arizona. Anything else would be based on pulling an answer out of my ass, what I think possibly happened, and other theories that have been put out on the internet. And none of that is usable in court. So I stay within my lane of exactly what I know. That's it. Because I have a standard is, why would I give you a detailed comment on a particular state or county if I actually didn't physically do the work? And you understand, all you have back here is a lot of people commenting on stuff, combination fraudcast and regurgitcast, telling you what happened. I believe showing you what happened. So to help you understand, because this is now discernment time, part 2, was this flipping votes or flipping obvious? You have to decide what is fact or fiction. So I will take you to my direct forensic research looking at this. Now, the first thing you have to understand, you're dealing under the hypothesis of a predetermined outcome. In other words, this was managed in some way. And the fact of the matter, it was. So where you begin was you're looking at the theory, because remember, scientific proof requires you test, you retest, you look at what happened, and then you decide, based on all that fact, what do you think happened? That's the scientific method. So the theory we're working under at the moment is managing a predetermined outcome for the swing states. There's 7 swing states. So now, remember that. Everything in the United States of America is technically decided, literally decided, by 7 swing states. 7 specific counties decide our fate. Let's look at those swing states. Now, you're looking at information right at the turn of 2020 here. Many things were different from the beginning of the year, before the COVID lockdown, and how they changed at the time of the election. Now, what you're looking at here on the left are the 7 swing states. Okay? In those 7 swing states, they alone represent 25,075 voting precincts. So looking at it in PCAP method, so you have something to draw to, that means just for these 7 states alone, where you saw all that going back and forth, it would actually mean they would have to have a direct feed in order to change a vote, a direct feed into 25,075 places, which on average have 5 machines. So it's 3 times that. I want you to understand the scale of what's being proposed. Now, if you were watching these 7 swing states and these 7 counties, the total available to vote, this means the people that are registered to vote, the total available population, if you can actually manipulate it, what you have is an inventory of 41.6 million people. You see why you only have to look at 7 counties within 7 states where they're densely populated, because you can actually understand what 41.6 million people who could potentially vote because they're registered could be doing. Let's look at it a little bit deeper, okay? Now, here are the numbers. So you have the numbers. Take a screenshot. Every one of these, take a screenshot. Okay? This is, and I, by the way, I will put this over on my Telegram for you, t.me/Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. So that's it. I have no other accounts. A lot of people fake their me or whatever. It's there. So immediately when the show wraps, I'll give you this so you can look at it yourself. Anyway, if you were to look at the dawn of 2020, here's how each state comes down. Now, you got to understand, there's a little bit of trick in some of this. One trick is the total amount of people who are eligible to vote. That means every known person 18 years or older. But you know, and I know, you got to be registered. So they do a little bit of semantics to hide the universe by saying, well, this is everybody eligible to vote. You think that means they're a voter. No, it doesn't. You have to be a registered voter, okay? So this is how the universe breaks down. If you were looking at Arizona, you're monitoring basically about 4.2 million people. Georgia, it's about 7.2 million people. Michigan, about 8.1 million people. Nevada, 1.8 million. North Carolina, we'll call it 7.4 million. Pennsylvania, we'll call it 9 million. Wisconsin, we'll call it 3.7 million. That is the universe of registered voters. Okay? These are, at the time, I'm going back in time so you can see it, these are the official numbers. So this is where you begin with anything, because I'm going to teach you how this works. I'm going to share something on my screen. Okay, let me get to share screen here in 1 second. Boom. Okay. What you're looking at on my screen is called, what I've done is I've taken, this is Arizona, right? This is Arizona. Our voting systems in the United States of America were decided on, and this is very key of why this has to work. We have fixed voting precincts. You are supposed to be from those precincts in order to vote in that precinct. And the precinct has to have accurate numbers. One of the 2020 things was they blurred them all together. You could vote anywhere. That was part of the con. So when you're looking at this, I want you to understand what you're seeing. Okay? You are seeing precincts like Annette. They have 3,520 people in that precinct. Let's look right at Apache, 1,786. You look right at Apache Park, 2,432. Now here's pop quiz time. Pop quiz. Let's just look at number 25, which is Appleby. Let's see if I can get that. Ooh, I went the wrong way. Hang on. I did it on the wrong screen. Hold on. I'm going to click Appleby. Where's Appleby? Alamo, Alexander, Adora. Oh, shit. Hang on. Well, where'd my Appleby go? Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's use Alexander. Okay? What are the maximum number of votes under any circumstances, okay, any circumstances that can come in from precinct number 11, known as Alexander? How many votes? This is a pop quiz. Put it on the screen. What are the maximum allowable numbers that actually can be attributed to Alexander? Put it in chat. What are the maximum amount of numbers that can be attributed to Alexander? You got it. 5,153. Another pop quiz. These are registered voters. In Alpaca, the number is 1,811. What is the most maximum amount of votes that can come from Alpaca? Put it in chat. How many? In other words, if you even get one more than this number, something's wrong. Yes, they can only have 1,811. Let me back out my screen just a bit. Now, I show you this for a reason, okay? The reason I show you this is if you're attempting to massage Maricopa County, here is every place and every number you must manage. Look at it closely. I'll go back and forth a few times. And this isn't even all of them. Now, I want you to understand this, okay? This is how our elections are set up in the United States. If you are going to manipulate Maricopa County, these are all the things that you are up against if you're actually just going to have a machine change a vote. Pop quiz, Citrus Groves. What is the maximum amount in Citrus Groves? You see it on my screen, top left. How many votes must this precinct not exceed? Well, the precinct is 4,813. So if you have 5,813, you've got a massive instantaneous red flag. And we all know if you're going to do something nefarious in the elections, right, you can't be caught. Look, I'm not even a sixth down the page. This is just Maricopa. Keep on looking. This is just Maricopa. And I know people say Michigan went way over. Pause. Because what we're talking about is Maricopa. We're not talking about what somebody said. Because, see, I can show you the data. Remember, in Los Angeles, we just went through this. There were huge, massive drops at night where Spencer Pratt didn't even get a single vote. Total bullshit. Let's deal in the realm of looking at actual precincts and actual numbers. And I'm talking Arizona, so I don't give a rat's ass about Utah. I don't give a rat's ass about Pennsylvania. I'm not fucking talking about Puerto Rico. I'm trying to get you to understand. Desert Hills, you see it here? This is how the system actually works in the United States of America. Everything comes down to the precinct. And that precinct has a finite number of where the vote can go, meaning the precinct number. And it has a finite, let's look at El Mirage here. I don't know why I keep on losing this, but I guess because I zoom up. Let's just go to Citrus Groves. Citrus Grove vote must have a ballot that actually relates to 0112. Get it? It must be in Citrus Grove. It technically should have been from a Citrus Groves voter. And no matter what, it can't be over 4,813. Well, the system, if you're going to rig an election, if you're going to just willy-nilly change votes, you can't just willy-nilly change votes because they must be in the right place, the right way. Because if you ever get it out of order, it's sunk. It's a flag. You will tell on yourself. Just take a gander at these screens, folks. I'm giving you Maricopa. I'm showing you the status right at the beginning of 2020, right? There's a reason I'm showing you these. I want you to understand size and scope. What the system wants you to believe is they just flip votes. And it was the machines. And you saw it on TV. I'm teaching you the methodology of discernment. This is part 2. Is this flipping votes or flipping obvious of what's going on? So when you look at these numbers, you understand there are fixed numbers in it. Now, what you do in anything, okay, is you now look at the status of what happens. Now, I want you to look at what's called the VEP. VEP. Pay attention to my screen. This is the VEP. I'm teaching you this for a very specific reason. VEP. The VEP is the voting eligible population. Is any of this about voting eligible population? Prior to 2020, it has always been about the actual registered voter. But you get this interesting move, all coordinated with this stuff, the whole system upgraded, and they began to use a term called VEP, which means the voting eligible population. Okay? Now, if you look at those numbers there based on the voting eligible population, an interesting thing happens. You see 75%, 73%, 71%, 69%, 67%, 66%, 64%. Those are the VEPs. Now, why did this system in 2020 start reporting on VEPs? Well, a very significant report, which you only heard about here, was called the MITRE report. And the MITRE report by our government studied what was going on in Russia. How was Russia rigging their elections? And they basically came up with, when you get in higher than anywhere in the 60 percentiles, when you get into the 70s, it is absolutely historically under the control of a rig. So see, it established a scientific standard. This is our own government. This is our own reporting. But they did it in Russia, didn't realize what they were doing. Well, what happened is our country had to flex. The reason our country had to flex is because if you looked at the actual based on voters, all shit hit the fan. Right? When they knew when you're in the 60s and you begin to get to the 70s, it's fucking manipulated. The system did a simple thing. Well, let's don't do it on registered voters. Let's do it on voting eligible people. You see these words? You see how it drives the numbers down. So take a look real quick. Here are the 7 swing states. Here is the VEP for the 7 swing states. Okay? Now, nothing works off the VEP. It's not about the universes of who's old enough to vote and how many of those people. Everything's driven by actual registered voters. Now, when you look at this, okay, when you look at this, all of a sudden, something becomes very obvious. And this is how the system didn't want you to look at actual registered voters. They just wanted you to look at the VEPs. Because when you look at the actual registered voters, the numbers go nuts. And statistically, from a forensic investigation for nefarious activity standpoint, you got something here that's incredibly wrong. I'm giving you a detailed education. Hopefully you have enough fortitude to look at it. Hopefully you have enough moral ethics to look at it, because I'm telling you what, your lawmakers don't look at this. Most election officials in the states don't even know this shit. And if you want this changed and you want to get a fix, you have to know it, because you have to educate them. So the actual turnouts, all of a sudden you start looking, wow, at an 85% turnout. And you find weird anomalies, like Wisconsin's most effective thing was same-day voting. It blew through the roof. Boom! Same thing in Arizona. Same thing in Nevada. So all the numbers break. So you remember, and some people will tell you, Jovan printed 27 books of data that just can't be used in a court of law, 27 books of data. And then I pointed out I never published 27 books on this. I just gave all the backing data and I did it on a fob. Then they changed it. Well, the reports were just too long. They were pages and pages, and you can't use that in a court of law. Let me show you our proof files. Page 1, you only have to understand these 5 rows. That's the overburdensome report. If you don't understand the 5 rows, we'll just show you, here's the day it occurred. And if you don't understand that, then I'll show you, here's how they covered their tracks. That's the entire 3-page report that you don't even have to really read. It's there. But some people will say, oh, it's a burdensome. Same people never watch the videos. Same people who never looked at it. Same people that have an agenda. That's just it. This is my truth. I don't pick sides. I am not tribal. Now, if you're going to understand this, we got to kind of go back in time. And if I went back further, the numbers would look worse. So I'm trying to be fair here. When you look at where precincts were, to what precincts became, right? You see everything went through the roof when it came to 2020. If you can't read it that way, look at it this way. Okay? Light blue is 2012. Darker blue is 2016. Darkest is 2020. Maybe this way you can understand the movement. Something happened that had never happened in history before, that you got a massive flux of people voting in the 2020 election. They didn't even vote in the 2016 election, but for some reason, they did it in 2020. Okay, these are the exact numbers. I will release this on my Telegram. You can see it. So now for discernment, I want to ask you a question. Are you looking at flipping votes as you've been sold and told? Or are you looking at something that's more flipping obvious that the system doesn't want you to understand? So here's how it is. Do you remember in Arizona, one little footnote? One little footnote. There were 37,000 anonymous administrative queries and logins into the Maricopa County election system. That means while the election was going on, by the way, this isn't a hack. They're logged in. Let me repeat that again. This isn't a hack. They're logged in. Another point you should understand. This isn't a hack. They're logged in. Now, this is where, for me, boot hits pavement. You're being told, foreign. They hacked and they flipped votes on foreign. So help me God. But there were no hacks. But there were, in fact, 37,000, more than that, 37,000 anonymous administrative queries and logins into the Maricopa County election system. What is a query? It's making a request to see something. The only way you can make a request to see something in the actual infrastructure is what? You've got to have a login. When you go to Google or a search engine, you're technically logged in under your email. And when you ask to look something up, you are making a query. Send me back the information you have. So in Arizona, there were over 37,000 queries. Now, you got to ask yourself in this thing is, if in fact China, Russia, Venezuela, Croatia, Kazakhstan, or any of them just inserted votes, how'd they do it? Well, one plausible explanation is, well, they got into the system. But see, we don't have hacks. We don't have hacks. We just have 37,000 plus anonymous inserts, which the system won't show you. Which also, I remind you, in a court of law, under oath, in front of a jury, Mike Lindell testified he never, ever had the PCAPs. But you just watch the statement. That's a switching of the vote. Here's how they flipped the vote. This is discernment. Was it flipping or is it flipping obvious? So now let's just break it down to the simplest math ever, if we can. If, in fact, you were to take the 37,000 plus times that somebody logged into the system, we just don't know who they are. It's not a hack. It's a login. How do you know it's a login? Because they entered a basic name, password, and they entered a password, which was 1234. They intentionally logged in. They didn't hack in. They logged in. Now, one way to look at this is, okay, how many batches, because we're told they're just inserting votes, how many batches were there in Arizona? This is the difference between evidence and theory and bullshit message, because I can show you down to the batch, to the ballot, to the packet, to the box, to the pallet. If we just looked at the number of batches, this basically means if we just basically say, okay, if they were looking at batches, right, and there were 10,435 batches, how many times could we say statistically somebody accessed a batch and we just don't know who they are or what they did? Well, that would be 3.54 times. 3.54 times. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, if it was by batches, why would somebody have the need to be anonymous looking at the batches? But the real way you should look at it is it's about the precinct. Remember, I already showed you everything's driven by the precinct. If for any reason you fuck up the precinct number, you're caught. Let me say that again. If for any reason you fuck up the precinct number, you're caught. And if somebody's doing something nefariously, you know, I know they don't want to be caught. So statistically, we could say, well, if they weren't modifying the batch, meaning changing a vote, could they in fact have been gathering information so they could load balance votes? Now, if you look at it that way, it basically means over the course of the election, if they're trying to take the temperature of where is the election at this moment in time, right? Where is this election at the moment in time? It basically means 50 times during the election, which equates to almost twice a day. Twice a day during the entire course of the election. And it actually works out to about 5 times a day because it's closer to the end this starts happening. But you would basically say twice a day they're looking at, okay, what's going on in the precinct? Why? Is because it's a very simple premise. If you fuck the precinct, you're caught. So now you got a plausible reason. Why is somebody anonymously, they won't tell us who it is. They won't tell us where it was. It's not fucking China. It's not fucking China. It's not fucking Russia. See, that's the problem. It's our own government. Why are they looking at precincts twice a day? Well, here's how you have to look at it, okay? you have to look at it through the filter of, because this is technical. What could have anybody been doing looking at precincts? Now, if you were to treat precincts, and in 2020 by the end of, where the vote actually came versus all the change, it was about net 750 precincts. Now let's look at this concept, right? In Maricopa, you got to deal with 750 precincts. And you can, no matter what, you can never fuck the precinct. You can never go across that number. So what you're doing is a very fine balancing act. Don't break the number. You got to understand this, folks. What they're looking at is what is going on at what time. Because if you break the number, we're going to get our asses caught. You follow me so far? You understand that concept? Okay. So in technology terms, if this was just a generic server, remember back in the old days when you would dial in, to the modems to get to the internet, what was the dreaded thing that could happen to you back then? If you got a busy signal, you go, fuck. There's too many people on the server. I can't get on. Do you understand that analogy? That was in the old days when it was individual routers, right? You're making a dial in through your computer, your CompuServe, your AOL. You're trying to get into the router, and fuck, you hear it through your computer. Right? You hear that, and all of a sudden you hear the fucking busy signal. You go, fuck. Too many people's on the servers. Understand that concept. So what did the internet in its growing time have to do? Well, they had to figure a way to load balance. If all these people hit this server and it only holds so many, we don't want to piss them off. We've got to load balance, which means it can now look at the traffic of what's going on. It can monitor what's hitting that server and go, and that server's reaching capacity. So when somebody dials in, now go to this server. That's called load balancing. And this is the concept you need to understand of what I'm about to show you. Load balancing. In terms of anything in the techno world, used to be a lot harder, now is a lot easier. You had to load balance. Load balance is a technical process of distributing incoming network traffic. Think of a vote that came in. Computing the workloads, how many people are there, or how many people are trying to get in, and making sure that no matter what, any single resource doesn't become overloaded. You understand that concept? Now you understand precincts. And if you're going to do something, okay, what you can't do is you can't overload the server because you'll get your ass caught. Get the concept? Now you're a tech fucking genius. Hell, I'm going to call you a tech rising superstar CEO who's second only to Google. Okay. So in this premise of load balancing, here's what we know. We know that if you were looking in Arizona, okay, at precinct number 3 at the time, Hakuna Matata. Anyway, that's Hakuna. This is Hakuna. You cannot have more than 3,421 votes. You can't. Why? Busy signal. Fucking no way. You expanded the limit. Now, if we look at things historically, okay, here's if you want to make it look like business every day, that's why I showed you how many people were registered in previous years. Then if you want to look at what Hakuna has done over history, you're going to have to make sure you stay within 2,537 to 2,543, right? It's only a delta of 5. That's it. You're going to want to make sure that you stay in that. So out of 3,421 possible registered voters, history shows that 2,537 to 2,543 actually vote. Now, you're going to begin to set off alarms. You're going to begin to set off alarms based on our government's own research, right? Called the MITRE report. You can look it up. Based on what we actually learned from Russia and everything else monitoring it. So the alarm system would actually go off if out of 3,421, you had 2,565 of those 3,421 come in to vote. Boom! All red flags go everywhere. This is an impossible number. It cannot be correct. Something's going on. You still didn't break. You still didn't break the golden number of 3,421, but you did set off a security indicator because instead of 2537 or 2533, you came in at 2565. See how small these numbers are? This is how tight it is when you're looking at precincts, and this is why you have to look at it by precinct. And they changed the vote for 6 million of them. Okay, so this is the alarm numbers. The way, if you were to graphically look at this, if we just treat a precinct like a server, basically, okay, you want all the servers, you want all the precincts to be showing green. You cannot afford to throw off signals. You want all the servers to basically look green. So what you're monitoring is, okay, what you're monitoring is when they begin to turn yellow or when they begin to turn red. Why? All kinds of alarms are going to go off. So this is what load balancing looks like. Okay? This is what load balancing looks like in the technical world. It's all about don't trigger the number. Now that you understand the premise of it, it creates a very unique problem. And the very unique problem is, can you actually just flip a vote? We're going to put in 435,000 votes for Biden. Well, let's use your common sense. Okay? Your common sense here, if we just use this as an analogy, if you decided to stick them in Glencroft, do you think it would set off an alarm? Just asking a question, right? Nothing can be determined by how many people are on a street, how many people moved out, how many people are red, how many people are blue. That is all opinions. It is not facts. What I'm showing you is absolute hard facts. What I'm showing you is absolute hard fucking facts, not opinions. And I'm about to show you hard facts, and I don't give a shit whether a Republican, Democrat, moved into a neighborhood, moved out of a neighborhood. Here's what the stats said in 2020. Here's what the stats said in 2020. I don't give a shit. You know why I don't give a shit about that? It's not allowed in court. And what we're trying to do is fix this broken thing. You cannot fix it on statistics. You actually have to show how it occurred, that it occurred, and who did it benefit. You got it? How did it occur? Where did it occur? When did it occur? And who did it benefit? You got it? It's not about stats, figures, extrapolations, fucking census data. Quit distracting the point because everybody, oh, yeah, that's it. That person was right. No, that person wasn't right. And the simple reason that person wasn't right is because it doesn't fucking matter, because it cannot be used in court. You either fix this or you fumble it. And all of that is decided by a court of law. We either fix this, and if we don't fix actually what it is, we have fucking fumbled it. Now I'll get back to my lesson. Okay? So this is load balancing. You can see it does a visible signature. Now, if you understand that premise, that you can't just stick them anywhere, you can't stick them anywhere. You can't stick them anywhere. You got to play within the numbers. So remember those 37,000 plus anonymous entries? What that says from a security standpoint is somebody's watching and they want to know where is everything at any moment given in time. Where is everything? Why? They can't bust the precincts. They can't bust the precincts. So they got to watch the precincts, because if they fucking bust the precincts, they're caught. Okay? If they bust the precincts, they're caught. If they bust the precincts, they're caught. So you're playing a very sophisticated information game. Information game. So what you can't assume, and nobody has ever been able to show, you can't just flip a vote. They sold you that on TV with graphics, those phony graphics. The reason you saw on TV, and they allowed you to believe it was vote flipping, television participated in this. And what they did, for the first time in history, everybody's telling you it's the machines, Dominion did it, and they flipped the votes. Isn't it interesting? For the very first time in American history, something happens where they now tell you, see, that was flipping the vote. Now, you've got to take that into consideration. But we have checks and balances. What are the checks and balances? And it's very simple. There is only one checks and balance. For it to actually be considered a vote that has been cast and counted, it has to have a ballot that accompanies it. Let me say that again. In order for it to be considered both cast and then counted, it must have a ballot to accompany it. Now, see, they don't tell you this in vote flipping. This is why you got to do discernment. And vote flipping, you actually believe you saw it on TV. And so, yes, they took away 170,000 votes for Trump. Now, in literal terms, which I don't blame you if you just knew nothing about elections, what that would actually mean is, ready? There were 170,000 ballots for Trump at this time. They reached in and they pulled all of those ballots back. Not only did they pull them back, they then took those ballots from Trump, and then they created a different ballot and then put it back in. This is why you have to follow this linearly, because that's literally what it means. Okay? That at this point in time, Trump had this many, 1,690,589 ballots. And then somehow, 33 seconds later, they changed it to 1,670,631 ballots. So they want you to believe that somehow they pulled back 20 some odd thousand votes. That means they got to yank the ballot back. That's one thing. They got to disappear from Trump. You got to yank the ballot back. Remember, it's when that ballot goes in, it creates this stuff. So that means they had to yank the ballot back from Trump and they had to rerun the ballot back. It's a physical object, folks. They had to rerun it back to Biden. And in this window, it would have been, it occurred, they did that in 33 seconds time. Now, when you look at how everything works, and that's why the system banked on you not understanding how this works. When you look at that, that's not physically possible in the realm of physical evidence. And that, by the way, they've never been able to prove a single flip vote ever. You understand that what happened is your belief system got hijacked, and the system showed you what to believe and told you what to believe. And that's the only thing they hammer on. It's the machines, it's the machines, it's the machines. Now, here's discernment. If in fact everything is 100% driven by the voter rolls first, you see the bait and switch here. The reason they wanted you to look at the VEP, the voting eligible public, is because if you just take that broad 6-degree polynomial number, oh, that makes sense. It's who is eligible to vote. But our system has never been operated on who is eligible to vote. It's operated on one singular premise, long before you get to the machines. Are you registered to vote? Nothing hits the machines unless you're registered to vote. So when you understand that our voter rolls and who has access to them is the problem, you understand that's how they loaded the gun. Now I'm going to show you this through who's registered to vote. I'm going to show you physical evidence of why there were 37,000 plus anonymous incursions into the election. See, what's really going on, and understand, it is not a hack. There's a fucking login. That's not hacking, folks. That's the door intentionally and nefariously left open. That is not a hack. Never has been a hack, never will be a hack. But we all know you don't invite vampires into your home because they will suck you dry. You got to physically invite them across the threshold. You've seen that in every movie. So let's say the system invited them across the threshold. Hey, come on in here and you monitor every one of our precincts. You monitor every one of our precincts. And as you're monitoring it, okay, you do what you need to do, which, by the way, we shared with you years ago, and that's why Countdown to Chaos. It's not about the election. It's about how did it build up to this to even allow it to happen. Let me show you what that looks like. So we now take the theory, wow, we know they can't just insert votes because it will stick out like a sore fucking thumb. If we look at Maricopa, they got 750 different variables. And if they even fuck up one, it's going to send red flags. So they got to know everything that's going on at any time. Now, if you look at that, you got all these anonymous entries. What are they doing? Where do we stand? Where do we stand? That's why they're looking at it every day. Where do we begin the day? Where do we end the day? Where do we begin the day? Where do we end the day? Now, if you know what the universe is, the number you can't break, and you know where everything stands at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, you actually know where you have to end in the foot race. Okay? Now, what this means in terms of technology is they're always going to leave footprints. The first footprint that gives something away is 37,000 anonymous logins, not hacks, and the system would never tell us who it was, and they fought handing over that data. Oh, it's China, it's Venezuela. Tell you what, if everybody knows and thinks it's China and Venezuela, known forever, and they came from China and Venezuela, they'd fucking hand over that shit in a heartbeat because there's 37,000 anonymous locations. But if they got it, why are they not handing it over? Because they want you to know it's China, Venezuela. Wait, fucking caught them. Well, see, that might not be what the answer is. The answer, which most people don't want to hear, is our own fucking government did it to us. But then you look for, okay, if there were 37,000 people who came in to do something, and they're looking at the data, and they're plausibly trying, because they know they got to manage it by precinct. Again, you break the precinct, you're fucked. So what they're doing is they're trying to manage an outcome, meaning we must know how many new ballots we need. We must know how many new ballots we need. We must know, everything operates off the ballot, not the machines. We must know how many new ballots we need. So what would they ostensibly do? What they're going to do is they're going to look at every precinct. What they're going to do is there's going to be boundaries on it. Don't fuck the number. Don't make it too alarming. So what would you do? If this is an information gathering process, then you begin to understand who voted and who didn't, meaning who's already accounted for and who do we have left to use. Now, if you know the net delta between the two, okay, you know the net delta between the two, then you got a finite database to deal with, don't you? Now, the only other thing you need to know is, okay, I know the registered voters on the list who haven't come in yet. All they need to know is what precinct is that voter from. That's all they need to know. That's all they need to know. What precinct does this voter belong to? Because remember, you can't vote out of precinct. So you're beginning to see here, got a lot of shit on the books. They know who and doesn't vote. They're watching it the whole time. But they also know if we're going to use this, we can't break the precinct. Let me show you what this looks like. Can you see this? I may need to. I'm gonna give you a bigger picture here in a moment. I'm just going to show you one, and it'll help you understand the look. Okay, he's got the look. Okay, if you understand the look, okay, you're going to understand things about designated rhythms. You got to know where to put them. If you don't know where to put them, okay, if you do not know where to put them, you're host. So you got to know where to put them. Now, you might notice something really interesting here. I'm going to change the view for a moment. I'm going to go to a different screen so you can see it better. I've showed you this before. I'm going to stop that screen, go here. I'm going to share screen. I'm going to go here. I'm going to show you. Okay, where to go? Window. Here. Okay. I'm going to show it to you this way. I want you to look at this screen. Now, we're going to start from a pull-out book. This is a batch. This is batch 8,402 out of 10,435 batches. So this is towards the end. Okay? This is towards the end. Now, let me show you how to read these. First off, you got top left, you got middle right, you got bottom left. This report encompasses visually 3 pages. Let me go to the side of the page so you understand. And ooh, I don't want to draw on it. Hang on. I want to show you this in terms of how the system looks at, because everything's about the system. This is a batch. This is a batch. Now, at the end of the election, this particular batch was 194 ballots. It is comprised of 100% votes. They tell you that are early votes. Now, they want you to conveniently forget that it took forever to count the mail-in, when actually they do it all up front. It just doesn't count. What they do in elections is they run election day first. Then, for some weird reason, you'll understand why, they only look at mail-in ballots after that. Well, when you look at this precinct, okay, in this batch, there only should have been 23 precincts reporting. That's the standard mathematical number of if you go to your actual voting precinct and vote, right? And they said you could go anywhere. We should only have 23 precincts reporting in a vote center. But what they want to convince you is, well, this batch of 194 ballots came from 151 different precincts, and they were 100% early vote. Now, why does this matter? You see on the left where you see the blue? Okay. If you were to look at these areas, 2.58%, 2.58%, or whatever, there are exactly five ballots came from Wyman, 5 ballots came from Ontree, 4 ballots came from Honda, 4 ballots came from Orangewood Park. Then we got 3 from Annette, 3 from Tonish, 3 from Holiday Park, 3 from Pilgrim. But then something really interesting happens. What interestingly happens is as you continue with the report, you find out fucking everything's one ballot, 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 and it just fucking continues. Everything's one ballot. Now, this is not how the mail runs. This is not how the mail delivers. This is not how Dropbox statistically work. So why did everything become one ballot, 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 one ballot? But they're all equally dispersed across areas. Now you probably figured it out. It's called load balancing. Remember, the precinct is the server. All of a sudden, when you look at this and you understand it in terms of incursions, you find out everything was done this way. Let me tell you why. Here's batch number 86. See at the top right? That ostensibly means it's early on in early voting, 100% early vote. Then you look at batch 78, it's 100% early vote. It has the same thing. Then you look at batch 8,413. Wow, it has the same features. And then you look at batch 8,402. You just see it over and over and over. These are the two footprints that can never be erased, that nobody in history, until we did our forensic work, ever monitored elections and the actual ballot this way. Nobody's ever done it. So you got 37,000 anonymous entries, and you got this weird anomaly, not in the pattern of how mail-in votes come in or run or are delivered, not in the pattern of how drop boxes are collected. Because remember, you got to understand this one simple fact. Understand this one simple fact. We are supposed to believe that all these ballots come into a mail center and somebody just reaches in, grabs 200, and that is what makes a batch. What are the odds that in almost every single batch, you have this weird anomaly of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way through? You understand you can't grab them this way. The mail doesn't deliver them this way. People don't drop them in boxes this way. People don't show up this way. So what you're witnessing is a physical load balancing effect. Is it a hack? No, because they're allowed to be there. So you got to take it to the next place. Okay, if this occurred, where did they bulk them in to finally get to the last number? Because they got to make it look like a foot race. They're going to be there. The ballot's going to be there. This is why they don't want you to look at the ballot. Because remember, you fuck with the ballot, it's a federal and state offense. You fuck with the machine, it's a boo-boo, a mistake, and at best, $1,000 fine and a misdemeanor. And if it happened 1 million times, it's one fine. Where if it was 1 million ballots, it'd be 1 million felonies at the federal level, 1 million felonies at the state level, all enforceable, 96% conviction rate. On the machines, 0. So it will reveal itself. Why will it reveal itself? Because they have to run them in. And then you begin to see, why did one fucking full month after the election did they run in 118,019 ballots one fucking month after the election? When you see they certified it weeks before. By the way, they didn't even get those numbers right. They never had the number, but they told you Biden won because it was a predetermined number. How did they balance the books? They balanced the books 118,019 times, 30 days after the elections. But how do you know that's not a real ballot? Because every one of them in the system, when they were scanned in, you cannot tell where they came from. You cannot see what precinct. And oh, by the way, we have the digital images of what they say happened, but it's just very convenient. Out of 165,000 of them, we don't have a single pre-image. We got a balance that's there. We have no proof it hit the machine, but you have proof afterwards it hit the machine. This is the nature of forensics. None of them broke the precinct. None of them set off huge alarm bells. Nothing was hacked. They came in willingly. And why you look at the paper is because it tells where they did it. That's why for all the mail-in ballots it was supposed to be, there's no fucking folds. It's wrong. That's why for all the ones that should be hand-folded, which is a early vote walk-in, it has a hand-fold. It's why all of that was fucking wrong. It's why on election day, it's supposed to be flat, no folded ever, that exceeded. But if you look across the numbers, they all balance to 100%. Isn't that interesting? None of the paper was right, but it all balanced to 100%. Now, let me ask you a question. Did Russia fly in people? I'm just asking a question. Did Russia or China fly in people to physically show up at a fucking location and to over handfold ballots? Because that's what it takes. Did China, Russia, Serbia, Venezuela, Iraqistan, did they fly in people on election day to walk in, because it won't have a ballot that's folded in any way, it'll be flat? Did they fly in to over insert those? And if they're just inserting votes, why in the fuck do you need all the mail-in ballots? Nothing's going to happen in any of this if you, the voter, the citizen, don't get discernment. I call it like it is. General Flynn said, Mike Lindell should get the Medal of Freedom. I don't think when you claim to America that you have every precinct, 3,000 precincts, every vote, every batch, here it is, who has done it, but you can never produce it, that you're a fucking American hero. My standards are different. You don't get the Medal of Freedom for that. But I do tell you what you get. The system will reward you if you sold the system message that kept everybody on the machines. That's just my opinion. This is why I say all of this is about discernment. I can show you the badge. I can show you the box. I can show you the fucking ballot. But we're supposed to believe, well, there's all these attackings from all these countries. Here's what we're supposed to believe.
In this election.
That's right. So what you're watching is those objects moving are the actual files that are being received and sent.
These are the squares here that are being sent. So everybody out there, what you're looking at, I mean, this is the proof. So if like Antrim County, that case is still open, you just go, here you go. Now you know who did it, how many votes flipped, when they did it, what time they did it, the computer it came from, the country that attacked us. I mean, this is This is what I have been excited about, and I only seen one. You know, Mary, I only seen one little line of that, which showed the IP address, that, you know, all that stuff that you're showing us. When I found out that you had it for that we had it, that all these people had this for every single vote, every single attack, and whether it was successful or not. Look at right now, we got up on the screen. Georgia is just getting attacked. It was just getting attacked up here.
I slipped there. Somebody anonymous behind a phone, never shows her face. Husband's a big Democrat attorney, former CIA asset, telling you this is where the flip of this is what it is. You get a new network out of it. Somebody rises to fame. They get a $150 million new company, all this other stuff. Proof. This is how they did it,
Back and forth. Each one of them was an individual attack. And now we're going to show you again. So if you didn't watch Absolute Proof, go ahead.
Got to hide people, got to hide names, got to have anonymous sources, got to create logos where they look like an official government agency.
Back and forth. Each one of them was an individual attack. And now we're going to show you again. So if you didn't watch Absolute Proof, go ahead and show us what we have.
Everything's told to you in a manner to drive you one direction. The only thing none of it ever does is physically show you how it was done. Show me the fucking ballot. Here's where I stand on this. I'm not tribal. I'm not. I can't be, because I understand America's at risk. And so it does not matter to me how high the individual, how decorated the individual, how rich the individual, whatever. If you can't show actual proof to the ballot, which is required by federal and state law, we're never going to get this changed. I'm only here for solutions. And because I'm not tribal, I can call this out. It's also why recently I'm removing myself from a ton of groups that always seek my advice or whatever. Don't amplify me, but certainly seek my advice nonstop, because I can't stomach it anymore. Because the only thing we should be focused on, we should have discernment as to actually how it happens. Because if we can't actually identify how it happened, it goes back to the analogy of your car having a leak and sputtering. You got to search it down, you got to fix it, and you're trying to fix it so the machine never breaks again, your car. This is not how it's done in our elections. But isn't it interesting? You got a few common denominators. What are the common denominators? If you step back and you just look for common denominators, and you ask yourself, what are the consequences? Or what are the coincidences? Do you realize how many people are involved in this that are anonymous sources? Do you realize how many people are involved in this are former CIA? Do you realize all this information about PCAPs are all former CIA people? Do you realize everything that pushes you to the machines is a combination of former CIA and former retired military? Do you realize that the groups that tell you it's the machines all were at J6, all play for the same team, all get amplified by the same people, and all do the tour circuits? That's what's called discernment, folks. Now, for me, my point in time in this was a very specific point in time. I am not in the audit business. I will never do another fucking audit. I only came to provide answers to what we were seeing so we could understand what happened. For me, election integrity is corrupt and has been co-opted from the very beginning. Politics decides who gets amplified, who doesn't. But the way they do it to you, constantly on programs, constantly on interviews, constantly on tours, it's because they have a message they need you to get. They don't need you to understand. And in fact, The whole thing is based on you don't understand. It's a disconnected person on a phone you can never see. It's a whistleblower, you don't know who it is. It's from a foreign country, but we can't tell you who it is because their lives are in danger. But it's a former CIA person. Well, I can't show you the numbers, but you got to believe me. Well, I can't show you the numbers of what happened in 2020 because in 2005, somebody got sued. But see, you never put these things together. I'm serving my moment in time. The same system that did this made sure you didn't get a full forensic audit in Pennsylvania and in Wisconsin, in Nevada, whatever. But what did you get? All the same people that sold this all magically popped up in every one of those states. All magically popped up speaking to all those lawmakers. Now, why would this be done? Because politics is too profitable. Answers are not profitable. Fixing problems are not profitable. In fact, it's more profitable to bitch and put out theories than it ever is to put out facts. It's profitable for politicians and nonprofits. We're solving it. We're solving it. We're solving it. But I use the example of Lindell Defense Fund, $18.3 million raised. What'd you get? You got told, this is it, trust us, believe it, but we can't show you. What'd he get? Increased wealth, massive donations, a public company, and now, more than likely, a governorship. That's the system. I will always be outside the system. Always be outside the system. And the reason I will be outside the system is because the system's corrupt. The system intentionally plays politics. You get a bunch of people together that want to fix a problem. The only recommendation they get, set up a nonprofit. Well, that's just how you get money off of it. Doesn't fix the problem. So my commitment to this entire thing was to bring a fix, and the only way you can fix the problem with it is to understand what it is. But in politics, they're all trying to avoid prison sentences. They're all trying to avoid implications, and they're going along with the system. And each side hopes it can manage it the best and use it to their advantage because they know better than us. And I believe they actually swap every now and then. We'll serve for this time, you serve for this time. I can also tell you something behind the scenes, if you're paying attention. All of these same people behind the scenes, if you actually watch the chatter, are all turning against President Trump. They're all telling you, President Trump did nothing about this. President Trump didn't do anything. President Trump listened to all the people around him that attended all the seminars, that got all the donations, that got all the influence, that the system paid them to sell, and that's their job. And all those people that are serving in offices, right, serving in staff, they're only playing to stay in administrations, next administrations. That's it. Can I carry this to the next president? That's the game, folks. Now, if you want that game to stop, you have to have discernment, not tribalism. You saw me call out President Trump on the rig of bank your vote. I have no problem telling the president, you fucked up and that's stupid. That's being loyal to your country. But saying, well, I follow them because they're a Christian, or I hate them because they're a Jew, that's the worst kind of tribalism. Because here's the deal. Nothing's changed. And the system always tells you what they're going to do. And in this system of telling you what you're going to do, while everybody's focusing on the machines, which are misdemeanors, what they've been doing is perfecting the voter rolls. And that's why Kamala now has 75 million votes, more popular than Hillary, more popular than Obama both times, almost getting as popular as they want you to convince Biden is. That's the system manipulating underneath where it matters. And where it matters is the voting rolls. But yet you're being told you can't do the voter rolls with sweeping a dirt floor. So If you want facts, I'll give you facts. But can I comment on Kentucky or Louisiana or whatever? No. Nor will I, because I didn't do any work there. And it wasn't my work that can show you stuff like this. And that's why my time in this is over. But your time's not. My time in this is over. I will never do another full forensic audit, period. Not only because you can't get past it, but number two, they're never going to allow it again in American history. They underestimated me. But your time as a voter, who is the one that actually has this right, you've got to make a decision. Either America survives honestly and ethically, or America dies and is controlled by somebody else, or America dies and it stays politics as usual. But either way, America dies because it's about politics, not about us. That's why I do these. And so I ask you, was it vote flipping? Or is it flipping obvious when you look at it and you take the time to look at it, which they don't want you to do? I want you to remember, here's my whole report. You got to understand 5 lines. You got to see where they inserted them. And you got to prove that it was bullshit and it wasn't really real. Those are the 3 requirements by law. But they will tell you, I submitted 27 books of evidence, can't make the way through it. Or he can't condense it down to a paragraph. Nobody can understand it. Well, what they're saying is you're fucking stupid and you're fucking blind. But here's the whole 3-page report right there. That, by the way, all 20 plus technologies, because if you do it right, they all cross-verify each other. They all show the same thing in a different manner, all point to the same conclusion, which makes it provable evidence. So for me, do not ever expect me to just play along because you think I'm a Republican. I stopped being a Republican November of 2020. That word to me is identical to pedophile. Because I know the truth. We don't have 2 parties, we have a uniparty. Everything's a game. Everything's a game for your mind. What they want to do is convince you by their story. Because if you buy the story the way they put it, nobody gets prosecuted and nothing gets changed. But they'll tell you, look at all the fantastic changes. That's why God gave us discernment, which ironically, if you just follow what's said, that's called blind fucking faith. We were brought to have discernment, but the interesting thing is it's free will. God gave us free will. So if you're swayed because somebody tells you every broadcaster or Christian wear a cross on the outside of the shirt, I think you have to examine, are you operating in blind faith? Are you in the truth? Or have you been sold a message? That's what all of this is about, because President Trump told you they're not coming after him. They're coming after you. And that's the whole game. I will continue my series. I'm hopping over to locals next. And I kind of look at some of these things. One group raised $50 million. Next group raised $48 million. One raised $35 million. Mike, just defense fund, $18.3 million. Can't show you shit. Yet we fucking struggle to maintain these archives. Because people rather see rah, rah, hoo, hoo, rah, rah, because nobody values the facts and the truth. And you can see that in evidence by just what it takes to keep this evidence alive and how far it's buried. I'll be over at Locals next. We're going to continue my series on Islam. The way you join me, right? If you're on Rumble, you see a little red oval, says join. You can join me over there. But everything I do, from the books or otherwise, all it does is support this work. But system raised, hell, between the GOP and all the little factions, raised $600 million for election integrity, and we got absolutely nothing to show for it except bullshit stories. I'm sorry, I can't do that. By the way, part 1 I did. The voting machines cannot be connected to the internet by law, ? That was part 1. This was part 2. Watch for my link to pop up, but you got to decide what you value and what truth is. You'll see my link popped up. Join me over Locals Next.
The upcoming 2026 midterms could be a bloodbath for Republicans? How? Consider this. On Election Day 2008, Barack Obama received 69 million votes. In his second term, he racked up 65 million votes, and he was considered the Democrat rock star president. Then Hillary ran against Donald Trump. She received the same 65 million votes. But come 2020, Joe Biden supposedly received 81 million votes. Was he really more popular than Obama or Hillary? Of course not. But that is not the half of it. In the 2024 election, Kamala Harris received 68 million votes. But did you know that now it's almost 2 years after that election, and somehow Kamala Harris has been elevated to over 75 million votes? How does a candidate get 8 million more votes after the election? Is this an attempt to validate the fraudulent 81 million vote fantasy from 2020? You bet. One thing stands between chaos and correcting history, and that is the historic 2020 full forensic archive of Maricopa County, Arizona, the single most detailed full audit of a presidential election in American history, audited over 2 million ballots, generated over 20,895,000 individual proof files. This took 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. This evidence must be kept for any and all future court cases, Supreme Court cases, and preserved for all time, eventually at the Trump Presidential Library. That is why we need you. You, the people, made this history happen, and now you, the people, can have a hand in making sure this evidence is saved for future generations. Please donate. Please help us. Donate now to continue to preserve a chain of custody state of the only legal court-ready evidence of the 2020 election disaster.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight